Hello and welcome to the special support section of Melee's Turnwheel. I'm your host, I'm Amelia Kirby, and today we're going to be taking a look at Duessel, Amelia, Knoll, and Cormag from Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones. We got some Grado guys this time around. Not all of the Grado characters. We still have Natasha, who's going to be coming up in a later episode. But most of the Grado characters are here today. And I'm excited for this one because, honestly, I really liked all of these guys. I have a good amount to say about most of them. So, yeah, let's just go ahead and get right into it. I think we're going to start with Amelia. And I think Amelia is going to go pretty quickly because I think I like Amelia a lot. I think she's very cute. I think she's very endearing. If I use the word endearing a single time for the rest of this episode, you're legally allowed to execute me. I'm putting that on the record right now. I'm going to try to avoid using that word from now until the end of this episode, because I said it so much in that one episode to the point where I named an SSS episode endearing because of how many fucking times I said it during that episode. Anyway, the thing about Amelia though is that most of her supports are like pretty basic and simple, and I don't really have much to say about them. In fact, the only one that we haven't already seen is with Duessel, who we're going to be talking about this episode anyway. So we'll quickly go through the other ones. Her support with Nime is very sweet. It's like it's just pure sugar, diabetes-inducing sweetness between the both of them. They're both just so they bounce off of each other really well. They're both just so nice. And bring out gas each other up, talk about how cool they both are. And it's really nice to see their interactions with each other. Just two people, especially Nime, who doesn't have a lot of or not Nime, Nami, who does not typically have a lot of confidence in herself, right? And Amelia, I don't think Amelia also struggles with confidence. I don't think to the same extent. But she definitely, it comes up in a couple of her other supports, right? And having these two, who typically have very low self-esteem, have this really good relationship with each other where they're consistently, praising each other, singing each other's praises, and talking about how awesome the other person is, and both of them are like accepting the compliments, and it's just nice. It's just a fun interaction between these two. But I don't have much to say about it past that. I don't think it adds a ton to Amelia's character. But it was a very pleasant read. And I'm happy I did. All right, next up is Ewan. And honestly, the Ewan support is in a pretty similar situation to the Nime support, where I don't think it adds. I think it actually adds a fair bit to Ewan's character. But I think I already talked about that in the Ewan episode. If not, I should have. I think it's cool to see Ewan just being so like genuine with somebody. I mean, he's still like teasing her and having fun with her, but he genuinely seems to enjoy her company, and isn't just kind of using her for his own entertainment in the same way I think you could argue he does with like Ross. But I think he genuinely seems to like Amelia, and then by the end this does turn into a romantic support eventually. In their paired ending, they apparently get together, and it's easy to see. Like, I think they have good chemistry here. Like, this is absolutely one where I see how they get there, right? Like, it doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like, they were just kind of talking, and then all of a sudden they become boyfriend and girlfriend or whatever. It feels like a good progression of the dynamic that they already have from as early as the Z support. But for Amelia's part, I don't think she really like contributes too much to this. I think that she's like Ewan's kind of getting her to see the things that are, like, Ewan sees a lot in the world that makes the world amazing to him, right? Like he has like a lot of childlike wonder. I definitely remember bringing that up in his episode. And he's trying to impart some of that onto Amelia. Amelia is not like a character that I feel like particularly needs to learn this lesson. She's not particularly nervous or serious, or someone that I feel like doesn't appreciate the small things in life. In fact, I think if anything, her Nime support, she's perfectly capable of slowing down and engaging in pleasantries with people. So I don't know that this really was like, I don't think it takes her on any kind of arc But it's still nice to see. I like their dynamic. I think it's a fun support for sure. The Ross support is a little odd. I don't dislike it. It's just Ross kind of being a dumbass and Amelia chatting with him and essentially it's Ross trying to look out for Amelia in his own bizarre way, the best way that he thinks he can. Relating to her, getting to know her, saying like, oh, we're both, some of the younger members of the army, so we got to watch each other's backs. And then by the end, he's like, I'll be this big brotherly figure for you, even though he's seems to be a little bit younger than her. And they have a little bit of a laugh about that. So again, 3 for 3 on the supports just being kind of nice, but not much else past that. And then I don't remember too much about the Franz support. Let me reread it real quick and see if we make that 4 for 4. Okay, so the Franz support actually does a good amount of legwork to make Amelia a more fleshed out character, which I like. Essentially, Franz and Amelia meet and they decide that they're going to be rivals. Franz essentially proposes this idea because he's jealous of the relationship that his brother Ford has with Kyle, and he wants someone like that in his life. And so the two of them decide to become rivals. The B support is more about Amelia, grappling with what Grado is doing. And I don't super like this part of it. Just it's not like bad or anything. I just I feel like they try to set up this idea that Amelia is coming to terms with what's going on, and she, resolving that she doesn't want to She doesn't care what I'm trying to think about how to word this. She's essentially saying, I don't what Grado is doing is wrong. I don't want to be a part of it. Now I just want to move forward and believe in that that justice can prevail and be a part of making that a reality. And that's nice. It doesn't really go anywhere with it or do anything with it, right? Like the fact that it's relegated to only one support in a block of 3, I don't think is particularly good. Like it doesn't feel like this is a crisis of faith that Amelia is having, and it doesn't feel like they don't expand on this sense of what justice means for her in the A support at all. So I feel like they kind of could have just added more in here about Amelia and Franz progressing their relationship a little bit more, and I think it would have landed better. But it's not a big deal, it's still a fine B support. And then the A support is pretty good. I like this one quite a bit. It's just the two of them bonding over the fact that neither of them have a lot of people in the world. Amelia has not known her father for as long as she's been alive. And then her mother, well, we find out what happened to her mother in a separate support conversation, but it's implied, at least here, it's implied that she is dead, or at the very least, no longer around. And so she doesn't have anybody. She's completely alone in this world. And she wanted to become a soldier, to become stronger so that she could, make up for the fact that she wasn't able to protect her. Oh, here's what it is. One day bandits raided our village and took my mother. Okay, so yeah. And she couldn't do anything to protect her, so she wanted to become stronger. And then Franz is obviously like, oh, I don't have anyone either. I mean, I have my brother, but other than that, I don't have any parents. And I don't have a whole lot of other people left in the world for me either. And so the two of them bond over that, and they decide that they're going to be that for each other, which is very sweet, and I think that this is a good resolution to their relationship. I like this pairing. This does become a paired ending, as does the Ross one, so she can end up with either Ewan, Ross, or Franz. I like both Ewan and Franz for her as paired endings. I don't particularly like Ross, but it's not... as a pairing for Amelia at any rate, but it's not a big deal either way. So yeah, I think these are all pretty good supports. I think the Franz one, at least of the ones that we looked at so far, because I'm obviously saving the Duessel one for last. I think the Franz support is probably the best. I like the Ewan one a lot too, though. I think the Ewan one's good. I think if the B support for the Franz support was better, then I might come. It's tough. Either way, they're both really good. And they're and I enjoy reading both of them. What steals the show here, though, is the one that I've been putting off for last, and that's the Duessel support. At least in terms of in terms of Amelia, I think it could go either way. I think this is one of Duessel's better supports, though, so I really like this one. And let's get into it before we pivot over to Duessel, I guess. Okay, so the C and B supports, I think, are Amelia's sort of track record at their best here, right? Where she's just so sweet, and she has, she's nervous but determined, and she has a lot of really positive interactions here with Duessel. I love the support for Duessel. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But obviously the big story thing here is in the A support, where Duessel throughout the C and B supports is trying to remember, Amelia, you look so familiar. I feel like I've seen you somewhere before, but I can't put my finger on it. And then in the A support, he realizes that it's because he has met Amelia's mother. She is alive. He did kill the bandits that kidnapped her. And now she's living in a village. The reason that she never tried to get back with Amelia is because she got amnesia from shock or something. I don't know. It was, generic bullshit. But this is obviously great news, and Amelia is very happy. And I like this ending for Amelia a lot. They do have a paired ending, obviously not a romantic one. And I guess I shouldn't say obviously, because the series has absolutely gone there in the past. But they do not have a romantic paired ending. Instead, their paired ending is about how essentially Duessel did reunite Amelia with her mother, and then she essentially became his most trusted companion, like his right hand, I guess. And that's great. I really love that for Amelia. Very happy that's how it went down. And for that reason, I think this is definitely one of the Amelia supports that I like the most. It's Amelia at her best, at her most endearing. Fuck! God damn it! I said it. I was like halfway through the word before I could stop myself. Oh my god! All right, well, sorry guys, no more Melee's turn wheel. I've got to kill myself. Anyway, great support. Very fun. And for Duessel, I think that this is also one of Duessel's best supports. And we're gonna pivot into him now. Duessel supports with Cormag, Amelia, Knoll, and Ephraim. And I think what defines Duessel's character across all of his supports is, or most of his supports, I guess. Not really the Knoll one. We'll talk about the Knoll one separately. But really defines Duessel across his Cormag, Amelia, and Ephraim supports is his identity as both a teacher and a father figure for the younger members of the army, and that really comes through in the Amelia support, because he's spends a lot of time instructing her, but also and being like a guiding hand for her, but also being like warm and kind. He has a really fun interaction with her in the C support, where she says, "Oh, I happen to think you're still quite young," and Duessel says, "Oh, well, now you have my attention." It's just fun, it's so sweet. And I think Duessel, having this, taking on this father figure role, for the other characters is something that we see crop up, not just in his supports, but this is something that goes back even to the main story, right? I don't remember if they ever used the term father figure, but he definitely has that vibe with Selena and Glenn, as sort of the senior general, right? And sort of taking them under his wing when they first became, when they first got added to the three generals of Grado. So this is a very consistent aspect of his character, and it's on full display here in his supports, and it's very fun to see. I don't have much to add other than that for the Amelia support. I like the Cormag support as well. This one gets made fun of a lot, and I think there's a lot of people out there who don't like this one. I'm not 100% sure, but I do sort of see why. So let me go into the specifics of what happens. So the C and B supports are pretty straightforward. And again, it sort of shows Duessel taking on a fatherly dynamic to Cormag, in my opinion. Maybe not to the same extent as with Amelia, but essentially, the C support is them reflecting on how they both ended up here, in armies fighting against Grado. and both of them sort of resolve to say like, oh, I've made my choice, I'm here because I chose to be, I'm forging my own path. And in particular, it brings up Glenn. Cormag brings up Glenn and says like, I know that as long as I'm making my own path, my brother would understand no matter where I ended up. And in the B support, they talk about a cool weapon that Duessel has that he treasures as like a family heirloom. And they bond over that a little bit. Cormag agrees that it's really cool and awesome. And Duessel thinks, oh, damn, you got a good eye. He also, again brings up a comparison to Glenn saying, oh, he asked me to see this as well and said very similar things to what you're saying right now. Which I think Cormag appreciates the comparison there, and Duessel bringing that up. He didn't really say anything, but I can imagine that Cormag is feeling happy about that comparison because he looks up to his brother so much, All right, and then we get to the A support, which I like for some reasons. I think is a little bit silly for others. Okay, all right, listen. The conceit of the A support is that Duessel shows Cormag a lance, right? And it is a very special lance. This lance is apparently cursed or something. It is an ancient legend passed through his family, Duessel's family, that someone from his family must always carry the lance around but never use it. So you need to have it on you at all times, but can't use it. And it's a special cursed lance. And one day, while they were doing some fighting or whatever, Volter apparently broke his lance. And this is back when he was still one of the three generals. Volter broke his lance and just kind of reached over and grabbed one that Duessel wasn't using. And because it was the evil cursed lance, that's how he became evil. And alright, I'm not gonna defend this. This is really fucking stupid. To have the entire explanation for a character being evil not only be so stupid, first of all, but also locked behind an A support that you're very likely to not get anyway, is so silly. And there would definitely be better for the story and Volter's character if this just wasn't a thing. However, I do like how this resolves, because Duessel doesn't have a son. And so he decides, Cormag, when I die, I want you to have this. Or I think just like right now. It's like, I'm giving this to you right now. It's also funny, like it's very convenient that you need to keep it on you, even though it's the evil cursed lance. If you were going to do that, why not tell someone about it? Why not be like, hey guys, if you ever break your lances during a fight, don't use this one. I know I have it with me, but I can't. Like, does he have to carry it around? Like, when he's not on his horse, right? Does he have to, like, carry it around on his person at all times? Like, it's so fucking stupid. But I like the way that it allows Duessel and Cormag to bond here in the A support. I think there's definitely other better ways that they could have accomplished that. I get why, like, I understand why they'd want to address Volter in the support also, because it's like a big piece of connecting tissue for them, right? Volter is a very important piece of both of their characters, particularly Cormag because he killed Glenn, but they can't even talk about how Volter killed Glenn because Cormag isn't guaranteed to know that on both routes. He's not guaranteed to know it on either route, I guess. No, he is, because if you recruit him with Erica, then he figures out that Volter killed Glenn. And you talk about it in the A support, or in the battle conversation in chapter 15 on Erica route. But because we don't actually see Glenn die on Ephraim route, but you still get Cormag. Cormag never brings it up. It's never mentioned. There's no scenario where he finds out that Glenn is dead and Volter killed him. I mean, you can assume that he probably like figured it out eventually that Glenn was dead, but we have no idea, if he ever figured out that Volter was the one who did it. So because of that, and that would have been the easiest thing in the world to write too. Like, why not just like have a scene in Ephraim route where fucking Volter kills Glenn? Like, it would have been so easy. But anyway, it's the short version is that I like this support a lot for their relationship. I like it for Duessel's character, and but I think that obviously the context of the A support is really dumb and really silly. Okay, let's do Ephraim next. Ephraim and Duessel have a great support together. We already know that these guys have an established relationship, and it's easy to see them talking. I mean, Duessel. The thing about Duessel here is that like he sees Ephraim and he talks to Ephraim as an equal, right? Like he says my friend. Which is makes sense, right? Because Ephraim is like his commander now. He's like the one that he's following. But in terms of like age and experience and like military rank, I guess like technically Ephraim is a higher military rank than him, but not Duessel has like years and years of experience of being a general. So it's cool to see them interact and have that conversation on equal footing, even though there's still like a very clear I would argue fatherly dynamic here as well. The C and B supports are just them kind of like going back and forth, doing a little sparring. Duessel does have a fun line here about, I'm not about to let a young punk like you best me at the spear. So even though he does respect Ephraim and treats him as an equal, he does also still have a little bit of cheekiness to his like, yeah, I'm still your master, right? Like you're my apprentice, I'm your master, or your teacher. And I think it's a fun dynamic for them to have. I also really, really like the A support. I'm just gonna read verbatim a line that Ephraim has. This is in response to Duessel saying that he feels bad that he betrayed Vigard. He made his choice. He's committed to fighting against Grado, but he does somewhat regret that he turned against this emperor in the process. And Ephraim says, "You never betrayed him. You remain as loyal to him now as when you swore your oaths. No, it is Grado who has betrayed the ideals it once held dear. And now, as then, you are my teacher. Nothing has changed. No, you are no traitor. If anything, you are the last true man of Grado." Which goes crazy. And Duessel's response is very sweet, too, because he says, "A student should not inspire his teacher." Which is just so I like their dynamic a lot. Like it's fun to see in the story and it's fun to see in the support. I think they have a lot of great chemistry together. All right, let's do Knoll next for this last one, and we'll pivot into Knoll after that. I like this support a lot. I think this is actually my favorite Duessel support. In the C support, Duessel essentially just asks Knoll, "Hey, what actually happened to Leon and Vigard? I want to know." And Knoll says like, "Oh, I don't think you want to know the answer to that. You might not be able to handle the truth." And then he tells a little story where he starts to. I don't think this is the whole story. I think Duessel cuts him off before he can continue. The way he introduces the story is by saying that this is a foreign anecdote of comedic nature, which is funny because the actual story says it involves two starving men and a single loaf of bread. If they break the loaf in two, both men will die of starvation. So the fact that Knoll seems to think that that's of a comedic nature is pretty pretty funny to me. Knoll is a very cynical guy. We saw that a little bit in his main story dialogue, and it does come up a couple times across the supports. And I'll point out, I came away from these supports really liking Knoll. I'm just gonna say that at the top. But Knoll, I don't really get what he means by this, or how it's relevant to what he's about to talk about. I did think about this for a little bit, and the best that I can come to is that in the story that he's describing, the situation is that, if there are two people there, and they're both gonna die, they don't have enough food to survive, and the fair thing to do would be to cut the bread in half so they could both have an equal amount. But even if they do that, they're both still gonna die. It's not enough food for the two of them. And so in this case, trying to save everyone will just lead you to just prolong the inevitable and still lead to a bad end for everyone involved. And I think that's meant to be like synonymous with what Leon was trying to do. Because over the course of this support, we learned that going into the B support, we learn that Leon, using various dark techniques, was able to see into the future. The way that Knoll describes this, too, is very interesting. What does he say? Yeah, so Leon wanted to see into the future, in order to possibly prevent, like, they were doing research into, like, ancient magic techniques that have been lost to time, and one of the ones that they were looking into was being able to see into the future. And Leon, with such, like, joy and kindness and excitement, is talking about, like, if we can see into the future, then we can prevent oncoming disasters and like help people, by knowing what's going to happen. And it's very in character for Leon. One of the reasons I love the support so much is because it actually gives characterization to Leon really well. I mean, we already knew this about him, right? Like, he's a very kind, caring person. So seeing, but hearing Knoll talk about how excited he was for the potential of saving as many lives as possible, especially through, study and, magical knowledge, which is something that, Leon's actually good at, as opposed to, like, fighting, which like, Leon has always had, a lot of insecurity about his inability to fight well. So if he can save people, if he can protect people by doing what he's good at, which is research and knowledge, then, obviously he's going to be thrilled about that. And that's a really cool moment to get for Leon through the support, and through Knoll's explanation of what was going on. But then he also says that they continued their work. He says there were ceremonies, rituals, such horrors, and then we saw it in the near future, etc., etc. So, like, that kind of paints an interesting picture, right? Because what did they have to do to get this to work? Did they have to, like, sacrifice people? Like, was there like, a cost involved? Was there some sort of, give and take here? Because whatever Knoll saw as a part of this, if he's saying that it was horrible, if this is Knoll we're talking about, if he says it's horrible, then it was probably really, really bad. And the fact that, if there were, like, live sacrifices involved somehow, this is also really interesting characterization for Leon, because we know that he's a kind and caring individual, and that he wants to save as many people as possible. Is he willing to do that? Is he willing to sacrifice people to save more people, potentially, being able to see into the future? This was before, I believe, all the stuff with the Darkstone. This is why he wanted to harness the power of the Darkstone in the first place, right? To prevent, I guess we'll skip ahead here to what Knoll actually saw. He doesn't know exactly how to explain it, right? Like, he says that the Earth, what does he say? The Earth crumble. We saw our people dying. We saw the shape our future would take. And, it sounds like a very cataclysmic event. I don't know why no one puts it together that this is related to the earthquakes that we know occur in Grado fairly frequently. But apparently, they hear something about the Earth crumbling, and everybody's like, oh, I wonder what that could be. We have no idea. Well, it's not that they don't know, and maybe they do. They're like in disbelief. Like, how could this happen? Like, what could possibly have caused this? But then again, that seems weird. Like, they know that the earthquakes are like a regular occurrence. I guess maybe they just don't think they're surprised that it could potentially get this bad. I guess that might be it. I don't know. But yeah, so Leon was like, saw this and was torn up by what he was seeing. And then just very casually, very matter-of-factly, Knoll tosses in, this is when the Emperor died, by the way. So we have Leon here learning that all of his, subjects are going to die, or a lot of his subjects are going to die. And then on top of that, his father dies, like, around the same time. And he needs to take up the throne of Grado, which he does not feel that he's prepared for. And, we get a really clear picture of what drove Leon to this point, willing to rely on some very, very unsavory methods of increasing his power to help him overcome these obstacles. And the ace support is really nice as well. The two of them, both of them describe themselves as essentially dead men walking. I don't know how old Knoll is, but Duessel seems to be in, like, his 50s probably, maybe a little bit older. And he, presumably because of his age, and Knoll, he was slated to be executed, and just by pure coincidence, he managed to survive. both of them have lost everything. They've lost Leon, they've lost the Emperor, they've lost everything that, has guided them in the past. And so both of them say, like, yeah, I'm, what does Duessel say? He says specifically, we are dead men who have stayed too long away from our graves, which is a really cool line. But then they both resolve, like, we're still, we need to remember what guided us in the first place and still work towards those ideals and those aspirations, because that's how we're going to get through this. And honor the people who we've lost along the way, which is so cool. Like, this is one of the better supports in the game for me, I think, so far. This is a really great dynamic between the two of them. I like Duessel a lot. I like Knoll a lot. We're gonna get into his supports next. He only has 3. But yeah, it's just fantastic support, and I'm excited to talk about his others as well. The other 2 supports that he has are with Natasha and Lute. We did already talk about the Lute one, and I'm just gonna kind of get that out of the way. I think the only thing here that really contributes anything to Knoll's character is that, he's normally so, like, stoic and, like, unflappable, even in the face of, like, very, absurd thing. Like, he seemed very nonchalant about the fact that he was going to be executed, casually throwing in the line about the Emperor dying in the Duessel support. And yet Lute, by the B and A support, he's like raising his voice at Lute. He has, like, exclamation points, so I think he's supposed to be yelling. And so Lute being able to shake this guy up and break his sort of veneer of stoicism, I think is pretty entertaining to see. You guys want to know what's crazy? The Duessel support isn't even Knoll's best support, in my opinion. His best support for sure is the Natasha support. I think this one is really, really, really cool. It progresses similarly to the Duessel support, where Natasha is asking about details about what's going on with Leon, and what led to all the things happening that are happening right now. The C support, they reflect a lot on the nature of their different practices and principles, with it essentially boiling down to, Natasha is a cleric, she has faith in the gods, and her power stems from that faith in something that she cannot know, she cannot see, which I think doesn't land quite as well in Fire Emblem, because there's like more direct evidence of divine creatures than there is in real life. But, like, if we're looking at it as a religious parallel, right, it still fits to a certain extent. Whereas the knowledge of particularly dark magic, I think anima magic can sort of fall into this as well. They talk a lot about the mages. Knoll refers to him and his group that helped Leon as the mages collectively. Their power and their sort of practices come from knowing and learning as much as possible. And Knoll, even says as much. He says, what does he say? We distrust what we do not understand, and we strive to know the unknowable. And I think this framing that Knoll brings up here of their relationship with the unknown being couched in fear, rather than, wanting to attain knowledge I think this is part of it, striving to know the unknowable, right? But I think that distrust that he mentions, I think is going to be is interesting framing given what we see later on in the support too. The B support is essentially Knoll explaining to Natasha what happened, how they were able to see into the future, like what he did, like how he explained it to Duessel. Natasha has a lot more to say about this than Duessel did, because she sees it as sort of, somewhat blasphemous, right? Like, being able to look into the future and change fate is something that, it's men stepping into the realm of the divine, right? Is kind of how she frames it. But Knoll challenges her on that, like saying, if you knew that something was going to happen, that you could, and acting on it could help save lives, would you do nothing? Would you just let people die because that's what was supposed to happen without any intervention? And she essentially says, I don't know what I would do. we do see it because in the Duessel support, it's kind of talked about almost like a hypothetical. Like, what, we saw the earthquake. He brought that up to Duessel, but outside of that, it seemed most like he was just talking in hypotheticals. It turns out that Leon did actually use this to an effect at some point. He was able to predict a storm that was going to rise somewhere. And prevented all the ships from leaving, and people got mad about it. But then the storm came, and he saved many lives. And it's unclear. It seems like Knoll sort of implies. I think this is also in the B support. He implies that, like, they're looked on unfavorably, and people don't appreciate exactly what they do for Grado. And like what benefits their research has already contributed or could potentially contribute in the future. So it seems like people don't really get what goes on, which makes sense. Even like people like Duessel and Natasha have very little knowledge on what's going on with the mages. So it makes sense that so few people would really understand what they are there for and what they have actually managed to contribute in the past. It's pretty interesting. And then the A support, they resolve. He tells her about the earthquake, and they kind of. She comes to a conclusion. She says, "I'm going to stay close to where the earthquake is going to happen, so that if I survive, I can help people who need to be helped." And Knoll, respects her for that, I think, and has a moment where he kind of reflects on, you would take this knowledge that we use this knowledge as a way to prevent things, and now that this can't be prevented, I was just sitting here wallowing in my own despair and sorrow or whatever. But she's going to take this knowledge, and she's not going to use it to run away or to try to prevent something from happening. She's going to accept the fact that it is going to happen, and she's going to be prepared for it, and she's going to use that preparation to potentially accomplish something good, which is not too dissimilar to what Knoll and Leon wanted to do, but it is distinct in its approach of, like, we want to know what to do so we can prevent as many deaths as possible, which is what she's doing, but, like, the fact that she's willing to put herself in harm's way, knowing that she might not accomplish anything at all, right? Like, that's something that I think Knoll really respects from his interaction with her. And I think, man, I like their dynamic a lot. I haven't done Natasha's episode yet, but I have read several of her supports because she supports with, like, Seth and Franz, I think. And I think that they, like, her and Knoll have such a cool dynamic here, and I really like the relationship that they have together. At the end of this support, he says, like, hey, I want to go with you, and like, be there alongside you, as we help to rebuild Grado. So she's clearly inspired something in him. The shitty thing about Knoll is that he only ever has one possible ending. Knoll returned to Grado, where he dedicated himself to rebuilding it and fulfilling Leon's vision. When the country was restored to its former glory, he disappeared without a trace, never to be seen again. And I think it would have been nice if there was one support that, like, had him, not do that. And I think it would have made sense for it to be Natasha, right? Because I think that they bring out, like, some really cool aspects of each other's characters that I think are awesome. And man, those are some really good fucking supports from Knoll. The Loot one, not as much, but the Natasha and Duessel ones, two of my favorite supports in the entire game. And I was sleeping on how much I liked Knoll, to be honest. I think that he's got some really cool moments, even if he's a little bit on the dull side a lot of the time. All right, last up for today, we have Cormag. Cormag supports with Duessel, Tana, Natasha, Archer, and Seth. I don't have much to say about most of these, especially, we've already seen the Archer one. We've already seen the Duessel one earlier in this episode. We have seen the Seth one. I do want to talk a little bit about the Seth one because I think the Seth one's funny. I'm just gonna skip over the Archer one. I don't have anything to say about this. I think it's nice to see Cormag bonding with somebody. But that's about it. I don't think the Duessel support does anything for Cormag that I haven't already sort of alluded to, talking about, his dynamic with Duessel, and how he feels about being compared to his brother and all that stuff. So I think I'm going to skip over that one as well. The Natasha support, I think, is nice. I like it. I don't have a lot to say about it, but I do think it's cool how, I think they have a very sweet dynamic together in the C and B supports. Natasha, is a lot less serious around Cormag. Cormag is a little bit, is they seem to be like, having fun with each other, and their more playful sides come out around each other, which is fun to see. There is a line in the B support that I thought was pretty funny, where she mentions, they're talking about their parents, and she mentions, she says, I was born in a village near the Rene border, talking about where her parents live. And Cormac says, well, you've got nothing to worry about then. When I joined the army, I was stationed near the border. Worst thing you've got to worry about there is bandits. And it's like, okay, that's like not, what are you talking about? Did they not spend like a bunch of chapters in the beginning of the game setting up how bad the bandit problem was? Because of how like Grado was not taking care of anything there. Like they were talking like they did an entire chapter where you recruit Ross and Garcia, where they talk a bunch about how bad the bandit situation is. I don't know. That feels like such a weird line of dialogue. I guess she's not like, it's not in Rene, right? Like but like if you're near the Rene border, like that probably, you could probably expect some bandits to be crossing over from time to time. And the A support, they both talk about how about being from Grado, right? And the irony of how they're killing people to save lives or something. I don't know. That one didn't like super land for me. I think they've addressed this a similar topic better in other supports, but this one's still fine. I think it's a pretty good way to end the support. Okay, and I skimmed through most of those. Oh, the Seth one. I almost forgot about the Seth one. Okay, so the only thing I want to say about the Seth support, for Cormag is that it's in the Beast support. He talks about how he and Glenn first met Vigard, and I'm pretty sure it's supposed to frame Vigard as like this kind, gentle father figure to the both of them, where he likes, he was nice to them and he saw their potential, and wanted them to be the best that they could be. But he talks about how when he was a kid, when we were kids, so both him and Glenn's a little bit older than him, so I would assume that Cormag especially was like really young. They threw a stone at a dog, or they tried to throw a stone at a dog, but it hit a soldier instead. The soldier got mad and arrested the both of them. And Vigard like came in and was like, oh, these two children, let me, feed them and give them a good meal, and then talk about how cool it would be if they became soldiers in my fucking military. Like, what are you talking about, Cormag? He groomed you, bro. Like, what do you mean? And like he talks about how he's from a dirt poor line of farmers. And, I don't know. I just feel like I don't think we're supposed to... I'm not taking this super seriously, right? Like, I'm not like, oh, the problem with Vigard or whatever. But it's just very funny that we're supposed to see Vigard as, like, this cool, like, kind, magnanimous ruler. And yet some of the... Like, one of the main stories we get for him in the past is that he fucking, like... He got two children who were from a dirt poor family. And presumably, like, was like, hey, if you come work in my fucking military to these 10-year-olds, I'll you'll get a lot of money and be able to send money back home or whatever. I don't know. We don't know that he said that, but it would be weird if he didn't. I don't know. I just thought that was funny. I don't think I read that the way that I was intended to. Like I don't think that they fully thought through the implications of that when they were writing it. Honestly, I thought I had a little bit more to say about the Tana support, but I'm rereading it back now, after reading it a couple days ago, and I just, I can't find anything really to grab onto here, to chew on. It's good. It's a nice support. I like their relationship. I like their paired ending that they have together, where, she tracks him down, and knights him, even though he's kind of, wishy-washy about wanting to be a knight of Frelia. I just think they have good chemistry, and I like them as a pairing. It's not explicitly romantic, but I think there's definitely, like, you can definitely read that in there if you want to. But yeah, sorry for a little bit of an anticlimactic end there. I thought that I was gonna end on a high note, because I think I just remember really liking the Tana support, and thinking that there was some good relationship stuff there, but not really anything that I haven't already said a million times about a couple of these other characters. So, go and read it yourself, and let me know if you think that I'm sleeping on peak fiction, because I do think it's pretty good. Anyway, that is all for today. Probably, I mean, maybe not, because this is the first of two episodes that I'm going to be recording and putting out. Probably putting them out at the exact same time or very similar time. So if you haven't already, go check out. There's probably already another episode out, where I'm going to be talking about La Rochelle, Dazla, and Renak. So go check out that episode, and then hopefully soon we'll be getting back into the main game. So, all right, see you around. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.